on it. I don't think I've seen Xiaoyu play it though.
No, not really.
Um,
He plays in his pubs occasionally, but yeah, not too much in competitive. So we'll see with TNC. I mean, they ran this Queen of Pain in the position 1 role in the previous game. Obviously, the priority was moved over a little bit, and this
mm,
kind of feels like a Death Prophet mid in response to a Queen of Pain trying to force him to a different lane, right? Because you use the Shadow Strike onto him, then you use the Spirit Siphon. Sure, the Queen of Pain can just blink away, but you still do trade relatively easily. You've got good movement speed, you've got good attack range, decent damage.
oh, you know what I would love? I don't think they should move the Queen of Pain, but if they want to, and I would be okay with it, they would have a really nice Invoker game, I think. Like, a Quaz Wex with a Vessel is really nice against Death Prophet. It's like Tornado gives you a long range way to like cancel Fiend's Grip in fights. You can also use the Tornado to remove Elder Titan aura buff in fights. Like Quaz Wex removing Tide's mana pool is like really hard for him to fight.
And then eventually, once Tiny's got a Blink Dagger, you probably have a few points in the Exort. You can get that Avatos plus Sunstrike combination for some pickoffs.
It also gives you Team Fight, which you're currently really lacking on TNC.
They've got, yeah, they've got decent farming potential with the Eye, whatever they want to pair it with. And their pickoffs are alright, but yeah, the overall team fight is somewhat lacking. Certainly SMG far and away ahead in that regard.
Yeah, SMG keep taking the Tide, and we keep talking about like, oh yeah, Xiaoyu is really good at Mars, really good at Tide, and you just take them away. Maybe this is a good Viper game. You're laning with Tiny. It's always nice to have like a melee body in front of you when you're playing Viper, off lane, and they don't really have like any purges. Obviously Tide, but like Nether Toxin literally counters him. So maybe they don't have like enough control for a Viper though. Is my only issue, because like once again they kind of don't have much stun.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to play a Viper, you need some, like, the two supports both need to have some kind of stuns and be able to frontline somewhat, and Io doesn't want to do that. Tiny doesn't want to do that, right? Like, he wants to get in and out as opposed to be in and stay there consistently like, I don't know, a Clockwork or an Ogre might like to.
Yeah, I think this is my problem as an offlaner when I have a 4 that's melee. It really like makes your lane weird, especially when it's as weak of a laner as Tiny. Because at least if you're laning like a strong 4 with another like offlaner with like a stun or something, there's a lot of kill potential. Also, is it Tiny Core then? Carry with Io?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say when they picked it up, like, maybe this would have been if SMG were playing it. I know Raging Potato used to play it on the position 3 a fair amount, the Tiny, but didn't really think it was in TNC's wheelhouse. I mean, they could just go for something big throwback, Tiny IO combination together. You never know.
Hey, last time you said something wasn't in TNC's wheelhouse, they ended up doing really well.
With a Death Prophet,
That was the Death Prophet post 5.
And then they let SMG have
Yeah, and now SMG have Death Prophet.
And it's a Moon Death Prophet as well, probably. Who, again, fantastic on the hero is Moon. So I'm still feeling SMG's draft. TNC, of course, have a lot more of that burst damage now. You've got a little bit more of that area control, so it's harder to just run away. You can just terrorize the DP if she starts running at you, which gives you that little bit of break space when you're having to contend up against that Exorcism. So I wonder what they've got left. I mean, are they thinking you think that this is another Young God Queen of Pain? Because they don't have a win condition right now on TNC. I mean, the Tiny, sure, if you get to that stage, but it's nowhere near as strong in the early game as it used to be.
Queen of Pain for sure could go into the safe lane again. I know Young God likes Gyro a little bit. Maybe that would be decent, especially since it gives you a good lane into Tidehunter. It's a partner for Io. I think it honestly looks pretty good here. As like a scaling core for them.
It's a great TA game though. There's so little that gets through Refraction right now.
Well, Barrage would help, and the Ags are like constantly outputting like damage and hits. It's not like the worst. You're also like being helped by Queen of Pain, Shadow Strike. I mean, she was gonna get a BKB, right? But I think they have like quite a lot to get through. Dark Will ult as well.
Yeah, just the ult though. And
Okay,
they end
so
up
carry
using
queen?
Beastmaster, okay.
Ooh, I hate
Mid-tiny?
Beastmaster in this. Oh my god. It's like...
Is this a mid Beastmaster?
Is it?
No?
No, it's offlane, yeah. Okay, so what's the safe lane? It's
Tiny IO.
Bane... No, I'm saying for SMG. It's Bane TA?
Yeah.
That's pretty fine into Beastmaster, is it not? Because you just like...
You've got decent ways to kill the boss.
Yeah. And then they can just move Raging Potato to the lane to kind of sit in front of it and make it hard for him to take the tower. You're also like we talked about earlier, pushing into Elder Titan is like quite risky. And Beastmaster's not like a take from far away like a Pugna. It's like a you commit in with like all your summons and stuff. So maybe it's hard. Maybe they just. I mean, they've lost picked it. They're clearly confident.
Are you confident in them though?
I'm not so much as confident as interested in how they're going to execute Carry Tiny. I think that's really like interesting for this patch.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to see perhaps something, again, where they just break the mold of the meta and, try and have something that teams are going to need to consider. Because, again, if TNC lose this, they're relegated.
Yeah, it is definitely guaranteed, no
true.
doubt. But I'm looking forward to seeing what TNC can bring to this game. But I know two people who can always bring the goods to the game is MLP and John.
Very much. In we go for game number 2 between TNC and SMG. And John, as the panel said, TNC, they can't really afford to lose this game. Otherwise, they are getting relegated back down to Division 2. Do you believe in this draft here against SMG, John? Do you think TNC has what it takes?
I mean, they've got the Fevy special IO back up. They've got the Beastmaster to kind of give them momentum. They give the Quap to the to the mid lane for Yoa, so we're not going to have to deal with a safe lane Quap this time around. It is laning up against a TA, which you can manage. I just don't know if I put much stock in Pause 1 Tiny nowadays. It's been a while since we've seen that. Post TI, it really hasn't shown up at all. It does have it is a classic IO combo, but it requires a lot of execution here from TNC, and I think we're going to have to see them clean up that execution from game 1. Like, it was sort of there, but with this kind of lineup, you have very specific timings you hit. You want to push in fast with the Beastmaster. You want your Tinies to be up online, ready to jump around, ready to play with a relocate very early on. And they have to understand that tempo here from the side of TNC, because we saw SMG. Maybe the start was a little bit better for TNC in that first game, but SMG just held out, got the farm on all their greedier lineup with Alina TB, and they just won out the end, having better scalings and, having better ways of just having the damage to deal with it, having that big Ravage control. And that's something TNC has to understand. The timing issue between these two teams, TNC has to be able to play against that.
We might have a very early level 1 engagement as Arfu is going to get spotted out. Young God not really in position to really look for a toss back, and he has the tree grab anyway. TNC now, the ones on the run is SMG. They want to get in range for a gush here from Raging, but they're not going to be able to find that either. So no level 1 engagement to come out.
There will be screaming.
Going back to my my earlier thought though, Jonathan, if anyone hasn't told you today, you do look fabulous with that very nice blue shirt on. You never tell me you're going to wear it so we can have matching shirts, even though I keep reminding you to. But thank you, John. You do look fabulous today.
Oh, you always match, Mike. You've always got the floral patterns on, so I just figure if I toss this on, it's always going to work. You look swell as well, Mike. I'm sure the viewers are very pleased that we're spending this time just complimenting each other as the teams go 2-2 right now on the bounties.
I wouldn't even call it compliment. I mean, you said swell, John. I mean, what does swell even mean? It's like average, right? It's like, yeah, you did all right. I called you fabulous, Sean. That's a good compliment.
I'm trying to think then. I don't compliment you too often, so I don't know.
No, you never
words.
compliment me, John. Don't sugarcoat it.
What I can compliment are the players, and we're taking a look right now onto mid, Mike. Yoe on the Quap up against Moon on the DP, getting that flex again on SMG with that pick, as has been discussed by the panel. Very flexible hero. Lane matchup does hold out fairly even. I think the Quap has ways of working the lane. Moon has ways of just holding his own as well with the Spirit Siphon, especially once that's level 2. The harassment from Yoa might not be enough to burst him down. Level 6 timing's really key here, but rune control is also really important for both sides. So I think we can expect maybe Afu to get that early movement out that he tends to do by the 4-minute mark to contest runes. And with a Elder Titan, it shouldn't be too tough for Afu down the line.
No, certainly not. Of course, mid lane, you've got Moon with Yoa, and well, I wonder with this matchup as well, right? Like, does Moon have the advantages as Yoe, John? I mean, with the Quap, you can't, in fact, hold that thought, because across the map, we do have a bit of damage going on here onto SMG. Xiao Yu, he's going to cop a big Melt Strike out on the Beastmaster, but does not go down. Surviving on about 20 HP. I suppose, talk to me about this lane, John. Do you expect the advantage to go the way of SMG or TNC?
I think this one's a little bit more back and forth. You do have ways to play it here on the side of SMG, but TNC can also just constantly shove it in. Mid one's also dropping low here.
Everyone's dropping low, John. Play hard, gonna go in for the Shadow Realm strike, but it's not enough to kill off mid one. He's gonna survive. Problem is there is no salve available here, so Roger, He's going to have to explain to mid one while he doesn't have some regen here for the TA is, well, nothing's left now. They've got to try and deal with this laning stage the way they are. It's a very tough position as Roger's going to get Bramble mazed up and he's dropping. And how do you farm as mid one? Zhao Yu's just going to dive him underneath that tier 1 tower. Obviously, there's no detection available, so they can't go through the meld, but they can certainly deny the creeps away.
Yeah, and you're starting to build that momentum up for Xiao Yu. Just having the boards up, having the Hawks to give some forward vision does help immensely. And Playhard's doing a great job of just being super aggressive on that Dark Will. And they just look to try to burn down. The salve is there with a refraction, but they will honestly play hard a bit.
Yeah, nice meld strike in. So get a bit of revenge there onto Playhard. You back and forth bot lane, and I suppose while we have a chance, John, we should have a quick gander at the top lane, perhaps, as we've got Arfu there with Young God. Or against Young God, rather, and Febby, of course, there on the IO, along with the Raging Potato. I mean, I know you kind of briefly went over this lane already, John, but anything else in particular we need to watch out for?
And Tiny IO is just really strong. Great snipe from the Courier. There is a lot of damage potential here from SMG, though. Like, if you do get a good Spirit out, and then you get a good Gush to follow through, you can kind of rip through these cores. Tiny does not have much armor to lane with. So if you get a lot of damage on Afu, you can just gap close, dished out the damage onto Young God, force him back. Febby will provide a lot of regen, so it's going to be hard to completely shut out the Tiny farm. But you can make it a painful process, make it a very slow process. You're immediately here up against a Tide as well, so Anchor Smash is always going to be a constant issue. That just kind of makes it a little bit harder for Young God if Febby doesn't put his body forward.
Yeah. Avalanche out, but it'll be just fine. How is the mid lane going as well? I mean, Moon right now, 22 CS against the 15, rather not the 15, but the 21 of Yoe. It's a pretty close matchup in this mid lane. Not really too much going on here. It just seems like they're both happy to just kind of trade farm.
It's a very static lane. Again, both sides have ways of breaking off the aggression from either side. They've got some regen on hand with their own skills, although DP kind of wins out in that sense. But you have the mobility on Yoe to secure those water runes. We're at the 4-minute mark. Afu hasn't really shifted out because of how busy top lane is, so that is giving more of a window here for Yoe to play around, and I think that's kind of opening up that matchup a bit more. It's not the timings we usually expect from Afu. He's just really focusing on his side lane, but it is what it is sometimes.
Bot lane, Roger. He's going to end up going down here as Playhard, able to connect the strike with the Shadow Realm. A nice kill here for TNC down to this bot lane. Still a very hard laning stage here for SMG as mid one. I mean, he's still farming decently. It does feel like the TA, though, is going to be quite reliant on just hitting up that jungle. Probably very soon, considering how this lane is going.
And that's the beauty of SMG's draft. The DP is not going to need too much jungle space. The Tide might, but he can also just eat laning space and make some action happen on the map as well, especially if Ravage is up. So you can kind of stall out for your win condition on the TA. You are also kind of keeping Xiao Yu in check. He has been really aggressive. He's been trying to slow down the TA's farm, but he's sacrificing his own CS. He will still have some good timing on the Helm of the Dominator, and that's when the push can really start flowing from TNC. Until that point, you're kind of just hanging in lane, and without a support to play with, you can't really zone out mid one fully here.
Certainly not. Roger. Nightmare there on to Playhard. Not going to amount to much, though. Just a bit of trading here between the two. Fighting over those runes right now. Bit of a rotation from Febby on the IO. Looks like he does want to just swipe the banner away from Moon on the DP, and he's going to be able to get away with it. Meantime, Roger's still messing around here with Playhard, but the Nightmare is going to fly out on Yoe. He's going to try and jump in, but Playhard has already gone down, so Yoe, all he can do is really try to trade. This Febby will try to help him out, but now Moon is going to pop the Exorcism, but I don't know if this is really going to amount to much, as Roger's already dead, and Moon, he's not going to find anything. Febby will give him the tip.
Yeah, it's a bit optimistic. No stuns to stop the simple TP out. And with the Exorcism only having half duration, not at the tower, you're not really chipping away at that tier 1 either. So you miss a bit of a window here from SMG. You do at least find a support kill for Yoe to build off of. I don't think it's the biggest loss for SMG. but that will again stop a bit of their own push going, and you can expect TNC to play off the back of that. Okay. Once that Dominator is up in Xiaoyu, they can make the movement down bot, and if their mid still stands, which it should because of that Exorcism use, they can easily shift towards the mid tier 1 and make something happen there as well.
Oh, Ravage top lane. They've got 2 targets. Febby, he's going to be the first to be targeted, but they haven't got the damage. All right, never mind, John. They have not got the damage to deal with them. Febby's going to survive. Arfu, he's going to keep trying to rush forward onto the IO, but now Yoe, he's going to jump in and help out. Raging, he will drop very, very fast and eventually will go down. Zafu, all he can do is just try to run. And hell, even Roger joins in on the Bane, but it's just to pop a Nightmare and just get out with Arfu. They kind of just miss out on everything and they still lose a hero.
Yeah, some big punishment coming out from TNC to build up a little bit more on Yoe finding those kills. They even managed to find that punishment onto mid 1 while he's left alone. The Dominator is up for Xiaoyu. He had the help from Play Hard. They can look to push. Xiaoyu is a bit low on mana, but at least he does have a Clarity flowing. So if he does find a good creep, they can get going now. Pressure the tower. Start taking some objectives, making space on the map. Start getting that aggression open. Right, you're still waiting for Young God to hit some item spikes, but if you're forcing responses elsewhere, SMG might not be able to keep track of that Tiny.
Absolutely not. Young God and Febby. And we spotted Arfu. He'll go for a stomp, and it will land onto Young God. Nightmare will be there from Roger as Moon. He does close the gap. It does pop the DD rune to try and go onto this Tiny, but Febby's going to be there to just help him run with the tether movement speed, and that's going to be enough. They actually just cannot hold them down. The lack of control really starting to hurt as bot lane mid 1 was dropping low the whole time. Xiaoyu now will be slowed up. Mid 1 trying to find a way out, but Yoe is going to be there with the Sonic Wave, and that's going to be more than enough as Roger, he will just be the cherry on top. And that'll be the tier 1 bot tower to drop. As top lane, they are even breaking out into another team fight, but it's going to be onto Young God again, and Febby is just going to make sure that Young God can just run. No issues whatsoever so far for TNC.
Yeah, there's some control issues coming out from SMG. Like, without the Fiend's Grip, it just feels really hard to pin any of those slippery, high-speed heroes down. You're really depending mainly on Nightmare, which is just not enough, and Ravage, which is such a massive cooldown. They will be able to find that top tier 1 tower trade, so it does even up the map control and will allow SMG to maybe plant some deep rewards, keeping track of Young God's farm. They have been trying to shut Young God down, but not quite to the effect they want to. Still, you know, mid 1 is also kind of playing the jungle, also trying to build up on that TA. Lagging a bit behind here, which is not characteristic for mid 1, but his lane just kind of got smashed when he got left alone. And with that tier 1 bot, because they're not depending on an ult here from TNC, they're already going mid. They've got the dominated creep, they've got the boars, they can just constantly apply pressure onto the mid and force the rotations in from SMG to give themselves that space for the Tiny to build up here, Mike.
Raging's moving in mid lane. I mean, you've got the Ravage up. Nowhere. Shadow Strike out. Play hard with the Brambles, but Raging almost feels like he's baiting them in, though it's going to be a lot of damage now flying out, so maybe he's the one that's been baited, and yeah, the tips are there. Do you pop the Ravage? That is a great stomp out to slow them down, but it's still not going to be enough, as they will eventually take the Tidehunter out. They just weren't ready for a fight.
Yeah, they're just not quite set yet on SMG, and they really need levels on the supports. They will try to catch Play Hard out a bit here.
I mean, they're going to try, but they've got that same problem of people just TPing away. They just don't have the control.
Yeah, it's making it hard for them to find anything in these exchanges. TNC, they don't get the most tower damage onto the tier 1, but they are forcing the response, as we said, and that's so much space for Young God to build up in the Tiny. Echo Saber almost up here. Maybe just with that, they could run around with the IO, relocate in, force these fights, force the aggression out for TNC. They've got a 3k lead at 11 minutes in. That's a big amount, and that's kind of equally shared between all cores as well. So it's not like TNC's sacrificing their progression on any single hero. All of them are kind of hitting these early game item spikes at the same moment. Not that SMG's too far behind. Mid 1 still within 100 gold of Xiaoyu at the least. So your TA is still going to ride into the Dragonlance, into Desolate Blink, maybe even a fast BKB here. And I think for SMG, this is the moment where they're kind of a bit weaker in terms of their hero lineup. You know, they need to kind of just step back, try to buy space for the TA, and sort of similar to game 1, just have the patience to build up on your core. You only have that one win condition, in your TA in comparison to game 1 with the Lina on top of it as well. But mid 1, if he does get the items up, will be very hard to hold down. There's only really the roar to hold him down once the BKB's up. And even that might be just nightmare dodge out by a Bane. So there's a lot of ways for SMG to kind of play around that.
Just feels like the calm before the storm here between these two teams. Is Roger, he's going to find another nightmare, but doesn't have the Fiend's Grip yet. Will force out the Terrorize, though, at the very least, is now SMG. They are going to move in again with Raging in the front lines, trying to find a nice Ravage target. In the meantime, though, Arfu is going to drop, but Raging now, he's gone too far. The team is nowhere near him. But he is tanky enough to walk away. Thing is, TNC are just not giving the openings over to Raging. Or maybe they are, because the Ravage is going to be thrown out, but it is only onto an IO. They do finally get rid of Febby, but it is going to cost them heavily, as now they go into a Fiend's Grip at Yoe. He's going to be fine to just blink out. They're going to keep trying, SMG, but again, they're lacking so much control at the moment. They just can't really lock anyone down, and again, in the meantime, Xiao Yu, he finds another kill as Yoe is going to jump in now, and Moon's gone. There goes your Death Prophet as Yoe. Well, he's low on mana now, but he will stick charge up. He'll have another blink in a few seconds, but he is still going to go down. It will cost him his life to get Moon, but mid 1 now, he's the one in danger as Xiao Yu does move in. Mid 1, oh, he's going to be saved by the stop out from Arfu. They'll give him the time to run, as Xiao Yu does finally end up going down. And SMG, still kind of kiting in and out. They'll try on to play hard now. The Dark Willow, but Young God, he's still going. With that OK Saber up, he's happy to just keep this fight going over and over again, but another nice stop out from Arfu. On to play hard this time will mean another kill to go the way of SMG, but now Raging. Can you find a way out, sir? It doesn't seem like it, but he'll go back in onto Febby now. The IO is in trouble, as Raging is somehow still surviving. Now the stomp comes out, so Raging's out of there. He'll TP out right in front as Young God cannot cancel it off. Somehow the Watermetal makes it, but Arfu is still stuck between a rock and a hard place, or maybe not. No, he's fine, John. He is just fine.
Oh man, that was such a long fight between both sides. The respawns are so short. They managed to come in. SMG definitely won that out in a big way. They save mid 1. They find the stragglers on TNC. They managed to get some good punishment off, while simultaneously defending their tier 1, preventing a push. The TNC mid tier 1's actually lower now than the SMG side, so that's great news up against a Beastmaster. And for the side of TNC, I think it's maybe time to just get Young God a little bit more. Maybe once you have that Shadow Blade up, you can play a little bit more confidently. We haven't seen big relocate plays yet coming out from TNC. They've just kind of been running up. And we haven't even seen a big roar yet from Xiao Yu. So there's still some control options, some plays TNC hasn't quite shown up yet. And that could catch SMG off guard if they do manage to find that opening. But for SMG, you're seeing the difference once they have that Fiend's Grip, Mike. It's a lot easier for Roger to find targets to keep down, although mid 1.
Yeah, top lane, mid 1's going to be in danger now as the relocate is there. Young God, he'll join in with Febby. Roger trying to show himself to secure a kill onto Yoe, but it may cost him his own life now as Yoe does make the jump in, fully healed up, and yeah, that'll be Roger gone. So mid 1 just very far forward trying to find that farm, but it is going to cost him his life and the life of Roger. In fact, Arfu in the meantime does at least pick up Xiao Yu, but it's still not going to feel like a very worthwhile trade here for SMG.
Nah, definitely not. They had to use the Earth Splitter out from Afu as well to make that work. It's a pretty big cooldown, and it's a lot of the damage coming out from SMG in these prolonged fights as well. Great follow-up to the Ravage. So your combination with Ravage Earth Splitter is kind of down for a while. At the least for SMG, that does mean no push will come out anytime soon. So they can keep trying to give mid 1 space, but mid 1 has to be a bit careful with his farming spots. The side of TNC, again, with a relocate, can easily jump around, make a 2-man gank into a 4-man gank, and just get the punishment out there.
They will. Still Xiao Yu, nice roar in, right onto Moon. The Ravage will be there to try and protect us. Moon, he is still fine as Xiao Yu. He'll be targeted. They'll try onto the Beastmaster Befebi. They're trying to keep him alive, but it's not going to last for long, it seems, as Xiao Yu does finally drop. That'll be 1. And it looks like that'll be about it, as TNC may not want to force the fight without their Beastmaster. And hell, they've already lost that mid-tier 1, but Roger, he came back in on that Bane, maybe trying to force a bit more, but his team is not willing to fight. So Roger will drop for nothing. I suppose SMG, they still got what they came for.
They take the mid-tier 1, open up the map a little bit more, ahead of TNC as well, which is not where you really want to be with Beastmaster. They've just been very focused on SMG to keep Xiao Yu down and prevent him from snowballing the side of TNC in terms of map control. So it's becoming a little bit harder to exert that pressure, to keep playing forward, to use forward hawk vision to get rotations out with that mid-tier 1 tower still standing. And the side of TNC, it feels like they're just waiting for Young God, right? Like I believe that's a Shadow Blade coming out, so he's got a way of sneaking around into these fights as well, with a little bit more attack speed to play with. Once the BKB's up, that's when you can feel fairly secure on TNC's end, but you have to remember Fiend's Grip is still there for SMG to hold back a spell immune target. So you still have ways of dealing with that on SMG. They are trying to move together as a team along with Midwin. He's got that Deso up. That's the early TA timing. If they do want to play, they've got a lot of minus armor to Tide on top of it, so they can kind of just look to burst some softer targets down here.
Play hard. Fine for now. Raging, still going to get the vision, so Gush is going to be there. Roger, you've got the Fiend's Grip if you really want to commit it, and I think he may. But he won't be able to get within the range to connect to play hard. You look back at that mid lane, I mean, Young God and Febby, they were trying to get a push going into that tier 1 mid. They won't be so successful, but they do at least secure a double damage rune here for Yoa, but it may cost him his own life as they do commit the Earth Splitter with the silence out. Febby is going to try and let him live, but it's not going to work, and Febby now, he'll get the tip back from the CEO. Moon will let him know about it.
Yeah. That's what you get for tipping early. You got to give it back, and no, Nightmare just holds him back with, and that should still be a dead IO right there. Good pickoffs coming out from SMG. Starting to really play around their DP, play around their Tide really well, and that's Roshan now. Again, with the Desolator on TA, with a Tide Hunter on hand, it doesn't take too long to get this done. They might not even need the Exo here because of how fast it is. And TNC, they know it's happening, but they can't really sneak their way in. So they're just going to have to surrender it. Nice pickup for mid once, protected by a second life. He's only about 300 gold away from that blink as well, Mike. So RTA is really going to be ready to jump in, help them gap close and find some soft targets in the back lines once that's up, and there's just not much from TNC to stop him. Like, they ganked him a couple of times. They haven't really tracked mid one's jungle, and he is working the jungle camps to the same efficiency that Young God is. It's just that the items, they feel a lot more impactful in the early game here.
Oh, Raging's been targeted again bot lane. You do have a lot of damage there with Young God. They'll even pop the Bedlam here from Playhard just to ensure it, but Raging, he is somehow still able to walk away, at least for a second. Mid one. Really aggressive TP in from our TA. TNC trying to find a way into this fight, but Fiend's Grip is there. They got Xiao Yu, and with a great silence up from Moon onto 3 targets. But that is going to be about it for now. Xiao Yu, he will drop. Roger, he will go down, but so will Playhard as now they rush for more. They'd love Febby on that IO. Febby is going to be able to tether to Young God, however, and seems like he will be just fine. It seems like SMG, I mean, they lost Raging earlier on, but they had the right idea to force a fight, and it does work out.
Yeah, they did force the buyback out from Roger, so I think in the end, TNC's not going to be too upset. They trade basically the same supports, support and off lane, both sides, except they force a buyback from SMG, slowing down Roger's build-up. So his Aether Lens is going to be a bit stalled out because of that, and that is a pain point for the Bane. He at least has the Tumbler's Torrent to kind of act as a pseudo-range increase with a little vault. So they still have some reach, but you do want to kind of gear up your Bane, especially to catch out Yoa. He's the one that's really slippery here. They are lining up for him, but they do have Ravage if they want. It's just tough to commit onto one hero.
Yeah, you don't really have the blink initiation here from Raging, so you're always going to be fine to blink through the tree line. Roger was not within range to start it off with a Nightmare. So, I mean, they are buying plenty of time here for Young God to just keep that farm up on that Tiny, and I suppose that's all that's important here for the side of TNC. It is still Tiny IO. It's still a very strong combination to have throughout the late game. Meanwhile, though, I mean, SMG, they want to start slowly chipping away at that top tier 2 tower. You don't have the Exorcism right now, but just with the right clicks alone, you might be able to slowly just get it done. That siege creep there as well, but it doesn't seem like they want to fully commit. There's rotations coming in, and again, they're going to target Raging Potato on that Tide. This time around, though, he should be just fine with his team behind him and Ravage up. It's very hard to be able to burst them down quick enough.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
What they are doing, though, is they are pushing the bot tier 2 towers. So TNC, they are still finding an amazing trade as this is happening. They're just taking way too long for SMG to be able to take this top tier 2 out.
Bottom tower has
So TNC, they get their tier 2 tower, and SMG, they get nothing.
And we're at the point where the Tiny just hits really, really hard. The Shard's going to come out next after this BKB. So you're kind of ready to go with Young God. You're ready to just relocate in the middle of a fight, turn things around from the back line, and start letting it rip. Mid one, he looks to be rushing his ag, so he wants to counterplay on that split push. He wants to be able to jump in with the ninja traps and just work the map. We'll see if it will pay off, although the relocate's coming in.
Yeah, jump on Moon, but Yoe, he trying to move in and help out. Mid one, immediately in onto that Quap. Not going to be enough damage, but they should be able to get play hard. They find an angle for more. Doesn't seem like it. However, down to that bot side of the map, Raging, he's going to be in a bit of danger now as Young God has spotted him out. They toss him up. Raging, again, has no help around apart from Roger, but he's going to commit the Ravage anyway with the Fiend's Grip now committed. But where is the damage output? It's not going to be there. Raging is going to keep buying time, though, as his team does push in that mid-tier 2 tower. But they're not able to get it done in time. They don't have a creep wave.
Yeah, just good plays coming out from TNC. They managed to grab the gem as well. Raging did try to micro his courier in that downtime, so he really tried to stall out to get the courier in so he could try to sneak it away. TNC still comes out on top of that, so now it's going to be harder to spot the Hawks. It's going to be easier to spot the traps. On the side of SMG, though, still going back in.
One. So much damage onto Febby. The IO gone as now mid one. They'll make the jump in. He still has that Aegis up, though, at least for another 7 seconds. But they're going to wait out that Aegis to expire. And instead try to get the real lives to terrorize. Oh, it's gonna land. Mid one, he just lost the Aegis and they make the jump in. Perfect timing from TNC. But can they keep it up? Well, they've lost Yoe. It's a 1-for-1. They have also lost the gem, it seems, though. Moon is dropping low now, but they keep going on to play hard and they might just find themselves a Dark Willow. Raging. Should eventually get there. Crypt Swarm, though, not gonna be quite enough. But eventually they'll get it done. Moon able to pick up the kill, but here comes Young God now. But a great stomp in from Arfu, but it won't matter. Moon already being roared up is going to drop and Raging. He's been left behind. He's only got an Anchor Smash to spam out. He will try, but it's only going to just take him so far. As the tips once again out from Febby. And there goes Raging.
Man, that gem has changed hands so many times in the past few minutes. Back to SMG for a while, goes back to TNC. It is riding with TNC once more. Great fight coming out from TNC, great punishment coming through. The patience to wait for that Aegis, the timing to get that right, managing to get that work. However, you do at least have mid one's Ags up, so he can kind of show up to these fights really fast once he starts dropping more of them on the map. And eventually, if he does go for the Shard as well, the silence is going to make it a bit tough for TNC to deal with as well. So I think, again, you have a way of dealing with a split push, to deal with the IO relocate plays, to deal with the Beastmaster, with the Helm of the Overlord, just with the Ags up on mid one. He still has really good damage just with the Deso anyway. And he is going to go for the Daedalus next, so really just looking to tie in more damage out. He is pretty much the only damage dealer on his team. I guess you could consider the DP, but that definitely is more sustained damage. They need something to just instantly burst down, especially Febby. I think the IO is just causing so many issues and enabling that Tiny. In fact, Moon?
Yeah, I mean, he's starting the team fight here. Terrorize, though. They've got mid one. Sonic Wave out.
Oh,
the TA dropping so darn low. And Ravage was just too late. Mid one's already gone, and you're going to be lacking a lot of damage now as Moon's going to try. But TNC are all over him. That'll be a Death Prophet gone. On the brighter side, they do at least get play hard, but that's about all they're getting. Febby to drop as well, but now Raging's been left behind once again. That'll be 4 down as they want the last piece of the puzzle, and they're going to find Arfu. He'll run, though, with the Ags up, getting that 3 BKB. But Young God's not giving up. He's gone all the way for this. They want the full team wipe, and they're going to get it. Wicked sick for Young God. And this is looking like a much better game now for TNC.
Oh yeah, they've really enabled this tiny core to just get what it wants, to be in the right spot at the right time. There's a double damage rune as well sitting about rune spot, and Roshan might respawn fast. If TNC are really lucky this game, might DD instant Rosh respawn, easy Rosh with a tiny round. Let's see if they are that fortunate. It looks like Yoa does drop the bottle, setting up for Young God to pick it up. So they will have a huge damage boost coming in for SMG. Their big issue right now is that they don't have any protective items, Mike. No BKBs on hand yet, no Yules to dispel off the Cursed Crown, the Bramble Maze, and it just makes it a lot harder for them to fight because they get feared up, they get rooted up, and they just get bursted down, especially Midwin. He needs that BKB for these next fights because without it, it's pretty much been a sitting duck. TNC has been very disciplined in jumping him first.
They have. Now TNC not in any rush. I mean, they're only about 50 seconds away from that Roshan timing. Of course, they don't know that, but I'm sure they could guess. They'll just hold on to that Radiant Triangle and wait it out. Play the much safer game. And SMG, they're the ones who need to try and find a way into that next Roshan. So you kind of give it away to TNC, and this game really starts to look a lot more difficult for SMG.
Dire's bottom tower is under attack.
Arcane Rune to be found out as well here by Play Hard, so another little power rune here, this time around for the Quap.
Dire's bottom
Yeah, Roshan,
tower is
10
under
seconds away. TNC, they might start a fight earlier than that.
tribute.
Keep in mind, SMG, they do have the traps of mid one to scout out that Roshan. They'll make the jump in, though, onto Raging. Fiend's Grip is going to be there to save as the Ravage does fly out onto 3 heroes. They're trying to burst down this Tiny, but Young God is just so darn tanky. He's going to walk away with the Shadow Blade out and walk right back in after Moon. Nightmare, it's only going to buy a tiny bit of time as now the Sonic Wave does come in. A Great Ash will stop out, though, but mid one's unable to get the damage off. So Young God, he'll just keep moving in. On that Tiny, back in on the TA, and mid one, he just melts. Ah, Fu, can you do it by yourself? There's no chance in hell. That'll be a 5 for nothing jump. Young God, he is completely out of control now.
Yeah, I don't know if you have enough to even burst down to Tiny. He has so much armor. He's going to have the full AC coming in as well, Mike. He has 3.4k HP with 33 armor. Probably going to go up even more. That's a lot of physical resist, and most of your damage really is boiling down to your TA. She just doesn't have the burst to deal with Young God, and yeah, they notice. They're just ripped through the tier 3 onto tier 4s, forcing the buybacks out. That will make a TNC play back a bit more, but they can still clean up the racks and then go for the Rosh. Like, we aren't seeing the impact from SMG's build-up here. Like, the Ags out from mid 1, no split push has been happening. It's been constant fights. They're not playing slow here on TNC. They're playing to their timings. So this Ags first for mid one is just not giving him enough. They will at least spot out the rush as it's happening. They don't really have the spells to play in there. No Ravage, no AoE control, not even the Earth Splitter's up, so they're just going to have to surrender that to Young God as well, it looks like.
No, absolutely. Yo, it. Looking for a bit more already. Just trying to go after Roger. In fact, they've just let the dominated creeps take over. It's Aegis now to go the way of Young God. You just gotta ask yourself, how do you stop them now? Oh, mid one is able to TP out in time. Very scary times here for the TA, but he's able to make it out. Though I've got to say, he desperately does need that BKB up to really be able to start fighting with his team properly. And that is still a hell of a while away. It just doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon, so TNC naturally will look for another high ground attempt. And I dare say with the Aegis up now, it's not going to be too difficult of a task. So I don't think there's really much for Young God to be afraid about. I mean, you look at the amount of damage he's taking right now. It's not really anything to really be that concerned about.
No. And it's coming in, it's just not really bursty, so Young God feels fairly secure in playing like this. I think one thing SMG can do is maybe consider split pushing on their end. With the TA Ags, like, you can just look to shovel lane, go back for the defense, shovel lane again, go back. As long as you have the trap set around the map, it looks like mid one might start doing that now. That should allow him to build into that BKB. A bigger point is the lack of protection on Moon as well. Every single time the Spirit Vessel flies on top of our Death Prophet, she tries to Spirit Siphon up, she just gets immediately blown down. So The build-up into the Lotus Orb should help. I think a BKB might also be helpful, just straight up as well. Just more spell immunity,
no.
force some choices here.
Oh, he gets. Oh, has he made it? Oh, he has. Oh, that was close. That was very, very close. The Psionic Projection just barely getting there in time.
You know, I still giggle at that spell, Mike, because you mouse over it, still says cooldown 30, the actual cooldown's 10. I don't know how. Ever since it says cooldown 30, but it's actually 10. It just allows the TA to go around all over the map, play the split push game, keep building up, rinse and repeat, and keep trying to stall to hit those item spikes. So SMG can just kind of play this game where they'll just kind of outlast your Aegis, keep trying to find farm where they can. They've got that protection now on mid one with the BKB. So at least he's not going to get immediately controlled up in these fights. It's going to force a choice out from Xiao Yu on the Roar. So they've got to kind of temper themselves on that Roar, use it on maybe when the BKBs fly in and kind of refocus their targets there.
Well, TNC is still grouped up as a team. You know, obviously, they're just looking for a pick-off here onto somebody so they can go back high ground. And like you already mentioned, mid one's been making it very hard with the Psionic Projection. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, do you really want to brute force the high ground right now? And obviously the answer is just no. You do at least want to pick off, but we've seen SMG in these positions before where they will just hold out on the high ground over and over again until the opposing team just makes a mistake. And even with a 17k net worth advantage, TNC, they're not feeling confident enough to make that play.
Yeah, they're just respecting the hold from SMG, respecting that there is a lot they can still do in these fights, especially in closed area like the high ground. Like those ramps are such a big choke point for Tide, for the Elder Titan to kind of make use of. They will go for a smoke play though, so they're going to try to sneak out here.
They will. Seems like they just want to try and address that top lane. Mid lane, though, is going to be starting to be pushed in here by Young God as, well, he just makes very short work of that tier 3 tower. While still respecting the damage up from the TA, but he's going to move back in and just get back to work onto that mid-Rax. Febby can only heal him up so much. And they do see the Tide, though, the Silver Edge. They will try to break, but Raging, he's going to be just fine. Ultimately, they get the tier 3 tower, but going after those mid-racks is a bit of a different story. They go back for it. Young God, again, going to get an ult strike here by mid one, but it's nowhere near enough damage yet to really deal with this Tiny, so he does move in, but they have the Halberd up. In fact, Young God now dropping quite low. And with only about 25 seconds of time remaining on that Aegis, they won't try again, it seems.
They're going to play it safe, hold back, take control of the triangle. SMG still can't really dip outside of their base anyway. With 2 lanes missing their tier 3s, they're always going to have to respond to the shove in. It's going to be a slower process for SMG to keep building up, but they are building up in the one here that matters. You know, mid one is still finding that farm, still trying to go into Daedalus. Once that Daedalus is up, it might actually become fairly easy to try and crit down Young God. Like, he is still tanky up front. We have seen the slow chipping away from the TA make its work on that Tiny, so still some things to be concerned about. The Halberd usage as well has been on point here from Raging. As long as the Tiny's up, they get the Halberd off. It becomes a lot harder for Young God to really do anything. There's nothing to stop that, so they are stalling quite nicely on SMG. TNC playing it safe. They know when SMG play like this, you're just looking for that opening. They're trying not to give any openings at all.
They certainly aren't. I mean, SMG just keep holding that high ground, and TNC, they might just be forced to wait for the next Roshan timing at this point. I mean, an 18k net worth advantage just means nothing, because one team fight could throw all that in the garbage. But what does mean something, John, is that DD rune in the upper top lane.
Oh, yes.
Could be very valuable right now for the side of TNC if they could find it, but there's no vision over it.
Yeah, would be even nicer if that was closer to Roche spawn, so same situation for TNC. Take a fight with the DD, clear up Roshan real fast, maybe even start gunning for those tier 4s after that sort of fight. optimistically for TNC. We'll see. SMG again, making great use of the Ags now on mid 1, keeping this holdout happening. They've got some protection now on Moon as well. He's got the Lotus Orb up at the least, and a Ghost Scepter as well to protect from the tiny damage, or at least the tiny right clicks. So you do have some ways of keeping yourself up. There are a few more tools on TNC as well. They've got the Blink flying out for Xiao Yu, so Blink Roar could be the way they start these fights now. Build on top of that, get an easy pick off, and take the numbers advantage your way. It can be one angle now for TNC to go for. They're kind of slotted up on Young God. He's just going for the Swift Blink next. But once that's up, the Tiny becomes really hard to stop. You will have to use your halberds properly here. I'd say multiple halberds might help, like say a secondary halberd on someone like Afu. It might be able to give you enough time. Like that's a huge window where Young God won't be able to do much.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
They keep trying to find a target to just pick off here, but Moon not giving them that opening either. TNC still yet to really get this fight started. So it has bought enough time now for mid 1 to have the full Daedalus up. So you are starting to answer that damage issue that SMG has had over this game. I mean, how do you breach this high ground, John? Like, do you just brute force it with the next Aegis?
You could try to be sneaky, smoke rotation in onto an open lane with no tier 3. Ideally top lane, smoke in, get a Hawk to scout, but there's a lot of sentries up. Have that lane shoved out by SMG. That's such a fast Roche. That's an instant spawn as well. No DD though, Mike. But that could be the next play for TNC. Either smoke play onto high ground or take Aegis. This time with the cheese and free Ags blessing. Could be big for TNC if they do manage to secure, or SMG if they manage to fight back. They have snuck out after lanes, but still no openings. Very safe from both sides, Mike. Very conservative. They know this is sort of a do or die moment for either team on this game.
Oh, mid 1, he's finally been caught out. Young God will move in, but the Ravage is there raging, and now the Fiend's grip to hold down the Tiny, but they don't have the follow-up damage. They have already lost Raging and Roger, and it looks like Moon will drop as the third.
Boy.
No buyback available. That should really make it a lot easier now. It's very hard to see mid 1 being able to defend this on the TA. But you do have Arthur with the Astral Stomp, but that can only delay so much. TNC, they'll move back into that tier 3 tower. And eventually should be able to secure Megas. But they do have to go back for that range, the top range racks. And it looks like they'll do that right now. They've got plenty of time without Moon and Raging. SMG, they are not going to call it. Not quite yet, but they are up against Megas now.
Yeah, this is a much tougher prospect now for SMG. Their wave clear isn't that high. They just called a GG. They called. Like, I think they realized they can't really handle the Tiny at this point with all the HP, all the items Young God has. He's just going to be able to do what he wants in the middle of the game. And SMG held on for a long time. They go for a different item build-up here on mid 1, going for the Ags rush after Deso. I think might have caused some issues there because they lacked damage in the early game, and we didn't see that split push until the high ground was already taken. So they couldn't really leverage that earlier than they wanted to there and kind of counteract the split pushing Beastmaster or relocate plays. TNC managed to hold on really well. Like game 1 was, again, fairly close considering, even though it did look like it favored SMG towards the end. And TNC just manages to make it work. They go back to IO for Febby along with Young God Tiny. And despite Tiny not being popular in pause 1 post TI, it still does a lot of work. It still has a lot of EHP by late game. And they did manage to get that space out for Young God.
That they did, John. I mean, TNC, it was a bit of a slower anticlimactic game number 2. But nevertheless, TNC have forced to a game number 3. And we'll see if they can take game number 3 after a very short break. We'll see you then.